Update, my fiancé left me for a younger version of myself. Hi again, guys. It's been about 3 months since I posted about my struggle to move past my 7-year relationship with my ex-fiancé. While I cringe when I think about the pathetic state I was in when I wrote that post, sobbing alone in that conference room, I was stunned by the empathetic, mature, and helpful advice I received from members of this subreddit. These past few months have been an absolute rollercoaster, and I thought I owed this subreddit an update given how much solace and guidance you guys gave me during some of my darkest days. I don't think things would have worked out nearly as well if I had continued to bottle up those festering emotions and isolate myself, so I'm grateful for every single person who commented and messaged me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, here's what happened. The night I made that post, I finally blocked my ex-fiancé and his girlfriend on Instagram, as many of you suggested. I think actually verbalizing how obsessive and masochistic my behavior was, instead of keeping it all inside, and finally feeling validated in my emotional reactions after reading your sympathetic comments, instead of feeling alone and crazy, clicked something in my brain. I resolved to break out of that self-destructive loop, to stop torturing myself with their perfect pictures and reclaim a modicum of self-respect. It was an incredible relief to not be constantly following the impulse to view their new pictures and give myself some time to heal instead of picking at that scab every single day. That weekend, I decided to reconnect with my family and friends and stop pretending that I was handling the breakup flawlessly. They were incredibly compassionate, though also shocked that I had been hiding my dark feelings so well, and it was like I'd instantly rebuilt my support network. I didn't realize how emotionally isolated I had become until I was able to be honest and open with people in my life. I did continue to avoid talking to friends who were mutual friends with my ex because I didn't want to put anyone in an awkward position, but I was able to reconnect with a few of my other friends, and I took the initiative to finally make some fun plans. Getting out of the house to enjoy brunches, hikes, and shows with my friends over the past few months has been incredibly beneficial for my mental health. Just being in new environments and focusing on people other than my ex was therapeutic, even for someone who tends towards introversion like myself. For your suggestions, I also decided to try out another therapist. I did find my original therapist somewhat helpful, but I also felt like he was not able to relate to some of the nuances in my issues given that he was in his late 50s, so we had a bit of a generational gap. My new therapist is incredibly compatible with me, and instantly understood the intricacies of my problems. It was daunting to have to open up to another professional and regurgitate my life story, but even after just a few sessions with her, I'm confident that the change was worth it. She has helped considerably with addressing the roots of my insecurities and was able to validate and analyze my feelings in a much more intimate way. If you are struggling to find therapy useful, I highly recommend shopping around a bit for a more compatible therapist. Therapy is certainly not one size fits all. Another popular suggestion from you guys was finding a job at another company, away from my ex-fiancé and his girlfriend. I didn't think that would be possible since the job market in my field is not great at the moment, but I began actively searching for other positions. I brushed up my resume, filled out a couple applications, and even surprisingly secured an interview. Then out of the blue, someone above me in my division quit to join a competitor. The senior managers were quite eager to fill his role quickly, so they decided to go with an internal hire. And after 5 or 6 rounds of interviews, God, I absolutely dread interviews, I got the job. I'm so grateful for this promotion. Not only is the salary substantially better, but the hours are actually more consistent as well. It's crazy. I feel like the momentum of my life has shifted so quickly, and I finally have an office. It's tiny, but I really enjoy it. The only downside was this promotion also meant I would have to continue working in the same building, albeit a very large building, as my ex. And as I left work before Christmas, the moment I'd been dreading came. I ran into my ex as I was leaving the office. We exchanged a few pleasantries and he complimented my new haircut. I thanked him, wished him well, and said I had to hurry to catch the next train. I wish I could say I felt cool and collected, but I was so nervous to see him again for the first time in like 6 months that I was almost shaking. On the commute home, I calmed down and actually thought, hey, that wasn't so bad. He looked good, but I didn't feel a rush of sadness or desire or anything. I mostly just felt awkward, like we'd become strangers again. I didn't feel that familiar impulse to stalk his Instagram and actually felt happy to see he was doing okay since I'd cared for him for so many years. I felt like at last, I was really moving forward. The next day, I woke up to a dozen messages from my ex-fiancé. They started at around 2 a.m. and were slightly incoherent in parts, so I'm guessing he was a bit drunk when he sent them. They were all long walls of text, which surprised me because he's not typically big on verbalizing his emotions. He wrote that he hadn't been able to stop thinking about me since we ran into each other outside the office, that he was sad that we weren't friends anymore because I still felt like his best friend, and that he regretted how everything went down. He said he questioned if he'd made a huge mistake in a moment of weakness and messed his whole life up, and that he couldn't help but regret it all when he saw me. He apparently noticed that I'd blocked him on Instagram, which I found funny given how intensely I'd been stalking his Instagram, and said that made him really sad. I gathered from his messages that he'd likely broken up with the woman I'd seen on his Instagram because he said that he felt like he had been searching for some ideal woman who doesn't exist, and that he wanted to reignite our spark after failing to find that same spark with other people. I'm not going to lie, it was shocking to read his texts, and I was trembling and struggling to process a lot of it at first. Part of me wanted impulsively to give him another chance, but after taking a day to mull over his words, I ended up feeling like he was less sorry that he'd lost our relationship and more sorry that the greener pastures he sought weren't quite as green as he'd imagined. I tried to respond kindly but firmly, saying that I really treasured and appreciated our relationship but that I felt like I could no longer trust him to the same degree I once did, and that I felt like it would be confusing and painful for us to become friends in the near future. I told him how hurt I felt when he blindsided me after promising that nothing was wrong, and how I struggled for a long time to figure out what was missing in our relationship but ultimately felt that as long as he thought the missing part was so crucial that he wanted to leave after all those years together, then we probably aren't meant to be together. I wished him the best. He didn't respond to my messages. I was a bit shaken by the whole thing, but I proceeded to enjoy my holiday break with my family and even elected to go to my friend's New Year's Eve party, which I was considering skipping. Well, I'm super glad I didn't skip the party because I ended up meeting a wonderful man there. He's funny, intelligent, cute, interesting, compassionate, and is eager to settle down and have kids after also somewhat recently exiting a long-term relationship. We've gone on 3 dates so far, and at the risk of sounding too enthusiastic, they've been the best dates of my life. We want to take it slow since we were both in long-term relationships a year ago, but we've been stunned by how compatible our personalities and interests and goals are, and frankly, we're also both quite keen to start a family as soon as possible. He is a bit older than me, 34. So while I'm trying not to be overly confident in this relationship, I'm also super excited to see where it goes. Anyway, I apologize for the wall of text. I think I'll write a little summary below for you guys. In conclusion, thanks in large part to the advice I received 3 months ago in this subreddit, I've emerged from a very dark place and am now cautiously optimistic about my future for the first time in a long time.